The reawakening of Luffy is the return of the Sun God. The Sun God Na, the ancient iron giant robot, waking up again coinciding with the arrival of our old friends, the giants of Elbaf, Dorian, Brogy, and Vegapunk's words that people all over the world have been awaiting Luffy's arrival for hundreds of years, the return of Joy Boy. I'm sure you all can see what is going on here. Elbaf is the beginning of the end of One Piece. People have been pointing out on various social media platforms and in my own comment section that Luffy is just too strong. There's practically no one out there that can really challenge him except for the final big hitters, other Yonko, and the Gorosei maybe. Anytime a character gets this strong, it marks a point of passage, you could say. There's no going back. We are closer to that final chapter now than we are to the first chapter. One holds importance to what is happening now as Luffy's potential reunion with Shanks draws nearer, if it does still happen. Shanks likely being the one that explained Luffy's importance to the giants of Elbaf, as it was Shanks that initially had a reaction to the image of Gear 4 Luffy in the newspapers. Shanks went to that island, the island of Elbaf, immediately after the end of Wano for a reason. I think more than just a pit stop. The giants mentioned the same newspaper at the beginning of chapter 116 and thereafter. The giants proclaim that they have come for the Sun God, that there are things in this world that cannot be stopped. A callback to the words of two critical figures that are only now making their move, Shanks and his captain, Roger, via the memory of Luffy's father, Monkey D. Dragon. Roger and Dragon told us that inherited will, the destiny of an age, and the dreams of its people, these are things that cannot be stopped, that so long as people yearn for and continue to pursue the meaning of freedom, these things will never cease to be. We recently got a callback to this with Vegapunk describing the existence of devil fruits, how they are inherited like wool, how they are born from people's dreams, how the devil fruit of the Sun God Na is a perpetual answer to people crying for freedom, no different than an eternal flame that never stops burning. The giants telling us that there are things in this world that cannot be stopped also takes us back to Shanks, who told Whitebeard about Blackbeard's plans and that no one could have stopped this reckless era. These are no this is a thing that will never end. History itself, history repeats itself time and again. That is why Joy Boy has returned, that is why I think Elbaf will mark the beginning of the end of One Piece, for we are entering a battle of the past or rather a battle that was waged in the distant past and will now be waged again. We are, for all intents and purposes, in a new era or an impending new era that will be defined by the conflict with three central or critical figures, the King of the World, IMU Nerona, Monkey D. Luffy is Joy Boy or the Sun God Na, and Marshall D. teaches Blackbeard or whoever might bear resemblance to Blackbeard from long ago. It isn't a coincidence that IMU was holding or in possession of pictures and wanted posters of Luffy, Blackbeard, and Shirahoshi, as well as Vivi. We now know Luffy is both the Sun God and Joy Boy, who lived during the Void Century. Shirahoshi is somewhat of a reincarnation of the previous ancient weapon, Poseidon, who lived during the Void Century too, and Nefertari Vivi's family line is descended from Nefertari D. Lily, who also comes from this ancient timeline, prior to the destruction of the world, the lost history, the Void Century. Lily's great blunder that spread the poneglyphs everywhere. Here we have three Will of D carriers, Luffy, Blackbeard, Vivi, and just as Luffy's reawakening on Agad Island is quite literally shaking and awakening the world around him again, the ancient iron giant robot waking up and the giants of Elbaf arriving, that now is the time to make their move. Others are making their move too, and there are surely more to follow. Dragon and Ivankov questioned why IMU Nerona was only now making his move after the destruction of Lucia Kingdom by the Mother Flame under Yu's orders, as if rebellion, as if the Revolutionary Army acting was not the only reason. But perhaps Joy Boy's return was IMU using what seems to be a replica of the ancient weapon Uranus to destroy the world in a manner that might have contributed to the world's destruction in the Void Century in the past, an ancient weapon that might only be possible now, in the same way Poseidon's powers are only relevant now, having been born in the same era as Joy Boy. Joy Boy's return, it's all connected. They are all connected. The destruction of Lucia Kingdom, mind you, and this is something I pointed out in a video titled, Luffy becoming Joy Boy is a disaster, that I will try and remember to link below this video. But the destruction of Lucia Kingdom is the direct result of 16 beams of light energy that fell upon the island. 16 is the number many have counted, many saying it's the same for the anime version of these events. In the manga, this is no different than the 16 chimes of the Ox Bell. The 16 chimes Luffy rang the Ox Bell sometime after the end of Marineford. This Ox Bell is a sacred bell, originally from an ancient warship, a ship of war, and so it is tied to war. The bell signifies the end of one year and the beginning of another, the end of one thing and the beginning of something new. One era dies and another rises from the ashes. It is rung 8 times to give thanks for the old year and another 8 times to welcome the new year, and so the past and the present clashing in a struggle for the future. If the ox bell is rung twice, it signifies some sort of distress or disaster. The 16 energy beams of light that destroyed Lucia brought about a disaster that has caused sea levels around the world to rise and the island of Lucia to disappear from the world entirely. Luffy's return of Joy Boy has brought about disasters around the world, causing chaos wherever he goes. And Luffy's ringing of the Ox Bell was believed by the Marines to be a formal declaration of war in the world government. No surprise then that IMU would retaliate against the revolutionaries with a declaration of war of his own and maybe even addressing the return of Joy Boy as if to say, "If you want to challenge me, come in." Leading up to Luffy ringing the Ox Bell, was Blackbeard's own arrival. Blackbeard, who after killing Whitebeard and stealing his powers, told us that this was his era now, this was Blackbeard's age. And as we question what happened to that Blackbeard's pirate ship that was approaching Agat Island, we have to ask whether that declaration from Blackbeard still stands. Whose era is it exactly, Blackbeard's, Luffy's, or the era of IMU Nerona? The bell has been rung, the world has been shaken, this new era cannot be stopped, nor can anything else that is coming, as One Piece rushes towards its end. This arc is almost over, and the next island, likely Elbaf, is now around the corner. IMU's butterfly effect. The actions of two of D carriers are driving the world to a precipice, the edge of a cliff. In part, I think this ties into the butterflies surrounding IMU, as I've mentioned before in other videos. These butterflies might tie into what is known as the butterfly effect, the suggestion that the world is deeply interconnected such that one small occurrence can influence a much larger, complex system. The butterfly effect is named after an allegory for chaos theory. It evokes the idea that a small butterfly flapping its wings could hypothetically cause a typhoon. Every action has consequences. If this has been IMU's era for the last several hundred years, one king to rule them all, then IMU is sending a message. As islands are obliterated, disappearing from existence through IMUOD, might be saying it's a shame it has come to this, that the balance of the world must be restored, even if it means all-out war and the destruction of the world. And this takes us to the last point of this video. IMU and the Will of D. So, I mentioned the Will of D, the coming storm. The term butterfly effect was coined by the meteorologist Edward Lorenz, who discovered in the 1960s that tiny butterfly scale changes to the starting point of his computer weather models resulted in anything from sunny skies to violent storms, with no way to predict in advance what the outcome might be. IMU, butterflies, storms, what is U's relationship to the Will of D? What does that initial mean? Is IMU also descended from the D clan, alongside Vivi? Was the name of D given to all of them? Was it given to the followers of Joy Boy? Was IMU also once a follower of Joy Boy? IMU, a pirate that betrayed his friend or captain, a mutiny. Anyways, the coming storm. You can't stop the storm. You can't stop the new era. Shanks mentions the new era the world government is afraid of at the end of Wano. Shanks mentioned this reckless era that cannot be stopped, that Luffy and Blackbeard are fated for battle, essentially the sun in the darkness, which will win. Aside from the giants of Elbaf, Dorian, Brogy, coming for the sun god after recognizing him in the newspaper, Shanks has also declared it's time to move, to go after the One Piece. Now, the sun has finally risen, morning is coming, let's go. I'm wondering who else will make their move, who else has been waiting for a sign for the return of the dawn and Joy Boy. Something that was prophetic was the speech by Doflamingo about the throne wars, a war for the throne, not just for the title of pirate king or king of the world, but also for the actual throne. Is this what we are building up to? A throne war. A war that Joy Boy may have died for. The age of dreams, the age of the sun, the age of the storm, who will be the king of the world?